You ever notice how some guys can't seem to keep their eyes on yours, like they're fighting a magnetic pull toward your cleavage? Well, with my ex, it wasn't my cleavage. It was my nose. I always thought dating apps were a shallow way to meet people, and for the longest time, I swore they weren't for me. But eventually, I got tired of seeing the same faces everywhere I went, and desperation nudged me to give it a shot. At first, swiping through profiles felt like mindless entertainment. But then, I came across a guy who really caught my attention. He had soft brown hair that looked a little unruly in a cute way, round glasses, and a warm, gentle smile. Let's call him Cole. Cole was just a year or two older than me, and we had a surprising amount of shared interests. His bio was corny, with a line that read something like, "Looking for my dream girl, could it be you?" Most people probably would have rolled their eyes and swiped left, but for some reason, I found it endearingly cheesy. So, I swiped right. I was expecting to wait around, maybe never hear back, but to my surprise, we matched instantly. And then, bam, he was already typing. Everything was happening so fast. "Hey," he messaged. Raplia. What followed was a clunky exchange of small talk that I'll spare you the details of. But eventually, we hit our stride, and the conversation flowed naturally. Cole's enthusiasm for the things he loved was so genuine, it melted my heart. "I'd love to keep talking about this," he said after a while, "but maybe we could save some for a date? Are you into coffee?" For a moment, I froze. It's not like I wasn't expecting a date to come up eventually. It's a dating app after all, but still, the way he asked caught me off guard. I wasn't about to let the momentum fade, though, so I said yes. We picked a cozy coffee shop to meet at, and for the first time in a while, I actually felt hopeful about dating. When the day came, I arrived at the coffee shop a little early, or so I thought. After glancing at the clock, I realized I was right on time. Still, as the minutes ticked by, a pang of worry started to creep in. Was I about to get stood up? But before that fear could take root, the bell above the door jingled, and I turned to see him walk in. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on me. His eyebrows lifted slightly, and a soft smile spread across his face when our eyes met. I smiled back as he made his way over to me. "Sorry I'm late," he said, sounding a little exasperated. "My cat decided to puke on my rug. Of all places, right?" I let out a laugh. "Oh no, is the little guy okay?" "Yeah, I think he just ate something he wasn't supposed to," Cole replied, running a hand through his hair. "Anyway, hi," he added with a sigh of relief. "Hi," I said back, smiling. For a moment, we just looked at each other, the kind of silence that felt comfortable rather than awkward. Well, at least I was looking into his eyes. It took me a second to realize his gaze was elsewhere. Was he staring at my nose? "Do you want me to grab the drinks, or—" No, you stay," he said quickly. "I'll get them. Be right back." I started rummaging through my purse before he could leave. "I think I've got exact change." He shook his head. "No, I got it. Don't worry about it." I glanced up at him, stubborn. "No, please. Let me pay for my drink." He smiled, almost amused. "I'm serious. It's no big deal. Let me treat you." In that moment, I could almost hear my friends yelling in my head, "Let somebody do something nice for you." So, I reluctantly pushed my pride aside. "All right, thank you." I smiled back, finally giving in. "Don't sweat it," he said with a grin. "What do you want?" I gave him my usual order, which was practically a paragraph long. He probably needed a scroll to write it down. It had only been 5 minutes, but already this felt too good to be true. My past dates weren't exactly perfect, so my brain treated this like he'd just proposed. I shook off the silly, giddy look threatening to creep onto my face as he headed back to the counter. "Here's your concoction," he joked, setting the cup in front of me. I raised an eyebrow. "And what did you get?" He took a sip of his coffee, leaning back in his chair. "I like it black." I grimaced. "What? It's so bitter," he laughed. "It's natural." He shrugged. "Sure." I chuckled, sipping my drink as we picked up where we left off in conversation. But then I noticed something again. He was doing it staring at my nose. A little backstory. It was broken when I was a kid and never really fixed properly. So there's a bump. Nothing huge, just a little feature I've always had. But the way he was staring, it felt like it was the only thing he saw. "Do I have a booger or something?" I asked, feeling self-conscious. His eyes widened, and his face turned red. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, it's just noticeable. I'm really messing this up, aren't I? I try to brush it off. Not enough that I can't try and save this. I mumbled to myself. I'm sorry. It's fine. Actually, it's a bit of a story. He tilted his head, intrigued. A story? Yeah, I was about 6 or 7, I think. I was playing rough in the pool with my cousin, and he ended up jumping on me and smashing my face. My nose was bleeding like crazy. Damn, that must have hurt like hell. It did. Felt like a broken bone. I laughed, taking another sip of my coffee. Well, I think it's cute. I smiled but couldn't quite hide the awkwardness in my expression. Thanks. I still didn't get why my nose was such a big deal to him, so I quickly moved on to other topics. We talked for a while, even after our drinks were long gone. Eventually, he checked his watch, glanced back at me, and sighed. I'd love to stay, but my cat's probably eating my couch by now. That's fine, we had a great time. I smiled. I had a great time too. Want to do this again sometime? Maybe at a restaurant. Yeah, I'd like that. He leaned in, his voice more serious. I'm so done with these apps. What's your number? I pulled a pen out of my purse, scribbled it down on a napkin, and handed it to him with a smile. I'll text you when I get home. He nodded, standing up to give me a hug. Thanks for letting me treat you. Like I said, no big deal, he grinned. I watched him walk out, eyes following him until he disappeared into the street. When I got home, I collapsed onto my bed, my heart racing like I was a teenager falling in love for the first time. It felt so stupid to fall this quickly, but damn, it had been the best first date I'd ever had. The whole nose thing still stuck with me, but my brain just shoved it aside for the moment. It wasn't that big of a deal, not yet. We went on another date, then another, and before I knew it, I was spending the night at his place. About a month later, we were officially together. I know it sounds cheesy, but it felt like heaven. I'd take all the heartbreak in the world just for a taste of this feeling. But after the honeymoon phase started to fade, cracks started to show. Nothing serious enough to break up over, but little things that made me realize how much I still didn't know about him. One morning, we woke up facing each other. Our blurry smiles stretched across our faces as we looked at each other for the first time that day. But then I noticed it again. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at my nose. I immediately felt my smile falter. My gaze shifted away, uncomfortable. What? Is everything okay? He asked, noticing the shift in my mood. Why do you keep looking at me like that? He looked confused. What do you mean? My nose. I know it's probably, I don't know, distracting. Sorry, it's so noticeable. He sat up, a look of concern crossing his face. No, it's not that at all. I wasn't staring. Come on, Cole. This isn't the first time. Just tell me if it's a turn-off or something. He quickly shook his head. It's not a turn-off. I like flaws. I like looking at them. Flaws? I laughed, unsure how to process that. Was that supposed to be a compliment? I swear I'm serious. I think it's cute. I rolled my eyes. Right. I quickly threw off the blankets and started getting dressed. Wait, what are you doing? He called after me. I have stuff to do, I said flatly, pulling on my shoes. No, you don't, he said, reaching out to stop me. I whirled around, frustration bubbling up. Why are you being so weird about this? I'm not, he stammered. Yes, you are. I'm not saying I have a problem with your interests, but I have the right to be uncomfortable with them when they involve me. So stop, before I really freak out. He looked at me, his face softening, but I could see the fear in his eyes. It wasn't a fear of losing me, though. It was the fear of not being understood. I took a deep breath. I need you to respect my boundaries. Can you do that? I promise, he said quietly. But I still caught him glancing at my nose again, trying not to, but still doing it. It was like he couldn't help himself. Looking back, I knew it was kind of ridiculous to be upset about something so small. But it wasn't just about my nose. It was about being seen for all of me. Not just a feature. Not just a part of me that made me feel like I was being reduced to something I wasn't. I looked at Cole, feeling a mix of frustration and guilt. I know it seems like I'm overreacting, but this isn't just about my nose. It's about being seen for who I am. He looked at me, his face full of understanding. I get it, and I'm sorry. I let out a breath. It's not about me needing to be perfect. It's about feeling loved for all of me. I'm trying, he said softly. I swear I'll work on it. He cupped my face gently, pressing a kiss to my forehead. I love you, all of you. I nodded, feeling some of the weight lift from my shoulders. Okay, but it's not just about fixing this, Cole. It's about making sure we understand each other. I'll do better, I promise. We smiled at each other, and I finally felt like maybe, just maybe, we could really make this work. As time went on, things between us started to get more serious. I guess that's why, when the thought crossed my mind, I asked him to move in with me. He couldn't contain his excitement. A few weeks later, as we were packing up his stuff, I stumbled upon something I wasn't expecting. How about these old mittens? Toss them, he called from the other room. He was cleaning out the bathroom while I took care of his bedroom. While going through a drawer, my hand brushed against something tucked deep in the back. A small, worn diary. Normally, I wasn't the type to go digging, but curiosity got the best of me. I figured maybe I'd find something to tease him about, some embarrassing memory. What I found, though, was nothing like I imagined. The first thing that caught my eye was the title, My Dream Girl, written in delicate cursive, above a detailed yet somewhat blurry drawing of a woman. The lines were shaky, like he was trying but couldn't quite nail it. Turning the page, I saw another sketch of her, Messier this time. Where are you, Vanessa? Where can I find you? Only in my wildest dreams. My stomach twisted. I kept flipping. The next page was a chaotic mess of scribbles. Half-formed eyes, faces, limbs, as though he couldn't figure out how to make her look real. Why are you fading away? I can't see you anymore. Why can't I see you? I need you. Come back, please. Then, I heard his voice shout from the other room. Did you finish in there? My heart skipped a beat, and I froze, trying to swallow the knot in my throat. Almost? Just trying to figure it out. I shouted back, my voice cracking. Do you need help? He asked. No, I'm good. Thanks, though, I said, my hands trembling. I turned back to the diary, scanning the page, and that's when I saw it. A drawn nose. Not just any nose, my nose. The way it bent slightly to the side, the exact shape, the little imperfections. It was me. Tears blurred my vision as I realized what this meant. I wasn't just his girlfriend. I was the substitute, the rebound. Vanessa was the one he couldn't get over, the one he was still obsessed with. And now I was just filling the space she left behind. Did you make it all fit? His voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I jumped, my heart leaping into my throat. I slammed the diary shut, standing up too quickly, feeling like I might collapse from the weight of what I'd just uncovered. The book dangled limply in my hand. Yeah, I mumbled, my voice barely audible. We stood there in silence for a moment. His eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time, I saw fear in them. It wasn't the playful, carefree look he usually gave me. This was different. What's that? He asked, his voice a little shaky. I found it while cleaning. I didn't mean to invade your privacy, I swear, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He eyed me carefully, a mix of curiosity and panic. Did you read it? I froze. The pit in my stomach seemed to swallow me whole. My instincts screamed at me to lie, but the words came out before I could stop them. Yeah, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. What did you see? The anger inside me started to boil over. I saw the girl you're still hung up on. I shot back, my voice rising. Vanessa, right? His face went pale, his mouth opening and closing like he wanted to say something, but couldn't. It's not like that, Cass, he stammered. Then what is it like, Cole? Huh. I snapped. Do I remind you of her? Is that why my nose looks so damn familiar to you? You've been drawing her, obsessing over her, like I'm just some damn replacement. My hands were shaking with rage. You're not over her. You've been holding on to her this whole time. It's not like that. He gritted his teeth, the panic in his eyes growing. Then explain it. Explain why you've been drawing her. Why you're still thinking about her like this. What the hell am I even doing here? If I'm just a stand-in for someone else? Because he stuttered. I could barely stand to look at him. You know what? Save it. I'm done. Wait, no. He moved quickly, grabbing my arm before I could leave. His grip was tight, his voice desperate. Please don't go. I love you. I need you. I can't lose you. His words were a frantic, broken plea. I jerked my arm away, my heart pounding in my chest. Let me go, Cole. Stop making this harder. than it needs to be. But his grip didn't loosen. Instead, it tightened even more. His eyes were wide with fear and desperation. "I need you. I need you," he cried out, his voice shaking. His tears fell freely now. I froze, my heart pounding as I looked into his eyes. For a split second, everything around us seemed to fade. But then I noticed where his gaze was locked. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at my nose, that same broken, imperfect feature. "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I whispered, my voice barely there. "Who are you?" "Please," he screamed, his hands shaking. "Cole, let me go," I whispered, trying to stay calm. "Please. You can't leave me." He gripped my arm even tighter, his hands practically crushing me. "Cole, please, just let go." The pressure on my arm felt like it was suffocating me. Desperation flooded my body. In one swift motion, I kneed him in the groin. His grip immediately loosened, and he stumbled back, clutching himself and falling to the floor with a groan. "Stay the fuck away from me," I hissed, "or I'm calling the cops." Before he could even catch up, I was already running. My body moved on pure instinct, the rush of adrenaline making me faster than I ever thought possible. The cold air hit my face, drying my tears, but I couldn't stop. I just wanted to get away. When I finally made it home, I slammed the door behind me, locked it, and collapsed on my bed, letting out a sob that shook my entire body. Why me? I thought, my mind spiraling. Why did I have to fall for a complete freak? I spent the next few days shut inside, hearing nothing from him. It felt like I was living in a fog, like everything that had happened with him had been some sick joke. I had been so stupid, falling in love with someone so fast, someone who was clearly messed up, but for a while it had felt perfect, until it wasn't. I tried so hard to push him out of my mind, to erase the touch of his hands, the feel of his lips, but it was impossible. I never got the truth from him, never got to hear it from him directly. He didn't want to tell me, and I had no choice but to accept that. What baffled me, though, was that he hadn't bombarded me with texts. Maybe he realized how terrifying he really was. Or maybe he thought I'd come crawling back. And honestly, I couldn't say for sure that I wouldn't have. One night, my curiosity got the best of me, and I opened the dating app we had met on. I read through the messages we had exchanged, his words still echoing in my head. Every line, every promise, felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. A single tear fell onto my phone screen as I read the last message. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I blocked him. There was a brief moment where regret crept in, watching the chat disappear forever, but then I pushed it down. It was done. I wiped my eyes and muttered, "Fuck him." I decided I wasn't going to waste any more time crying over him. No more emotional baggage. No more getting caught up in anything serious. Flings? Sure, that wouldn't hurt. So after I blocked him, I started swiping on everyone, chasing after that fleeting validation I never wanted to admit I was desperate for. A few profiles in, one stopped me dead in my tracks. It couldn't be, could it? I stared at the profile, my heart pounding in my chest. The name read Will, but I knew it was him. Same age, same interests, same damn bio. The same damn line. "I'm looking for my dream girl." Could that be you? My brows furrowed. It had to be a mistake. It was too coincidental to be real. It had to be some sort of catfish. Why would he make an identical profile with a different name? I shouldn't have cared, but I needed to know. I had to prove it to myself. I had to know if he was still looking for me, or someone like me. I scoured the internet until I found the perfect photo of a girl with a nose like mine. It was a shot from Instagram, and I could tell it was the exact angle I needed. I made a new account, uploaded the photos, and then, just to make sure, I filled out a list of interests that I knew would completely turn him off. I snickered to myself as I typed, "Not a cat person." Everything else was set, but I still needed a name. My finger hovered over the keyboard for a moment, and then it hit me. Vanessa. I quickly swiped through the profiles again, and there he was. I held my breath, swiped right, and immediately saw the "you matched" notification flash across the screen. My stomach turned. "Hey," he messaged. I threw my phone onto the bed and turned away, holding back the tears. I regretted it immediately, but at the same time, part of me was relieved. I knew the truth now. He hadn't been looking for me. He had just been looking for someone new to project his fantasies onto. But why the nose? Why that one detail? It didn't make sense, but I didn't care anymore. He didn't love me. I had nothing left to give him. No more energy, no more feelings. I deleted the app, deleted the account. I couldn't even look at it anymore. I sank into bed, exhausted from the emotional drain. And though sleep was hard to come by, I eventually cried myself to sleep. It had been 5 nights in a row, and I felt utterly broken. That night, in the dead of silence, I was jerked awake by the sound of a door creaking open. My heart raced, panic setting in. I blinked into the darkness, trying to orient myself. I reached for the lamp by my bed, my hands trembling. When I yanked the chain, the light flooded the room, and there he stood, dressed in black, his figure outlined in the doorway. I froze, eyes wide with terror, as my heart slammed against my ribcage. Before I could react, he lunged at me. My scream was cut off as he threw himself on top of me. "Let me go, please," I screamed, thrashing beneath him, trying to push him off. I clawed at his ski mask, but it stayed firmly in place. He shoved something wet into my mouth, and before I could even process what was happening, the world began to blur. My body went numb, my limbs growing weak, and eventually I passed out. When I woke up, everything was disorienting. My head felt like it was splitting in two, and my vision was blurry. I slowly became aware of the fact that I was tied to a chair. My arms and legs were bound tightly with duct tape. I fought against it, but there was no use. My panic grew as reality set in. "Help! Please! Somebody help me!" I screamed, my voice echoing in the cold, empty space around me. I scanned the room, trying to make sense of my surroundings. It looked like some kind of abandoned basement, and then I saw him, Cole, walking toward a table in the far corner of the room. Why are you doing this?" I sobbed, my head dropping in despair. "What do you want from me?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he picked up the diary he had been writing in, flipping it closed with a satisfied smile. "You know what I want," he said quietly, almost too calmly. "But why? Did you do this to Vanessa too? Are you trying to punish me? Just take my nose. Cut it off. Keep it as a trophy for all I care. Just don't kill me," I begged, tears streaming down my face. He chuckled softly, his eyes glinting with madness. He closed the diary and set it down, turning toward me. "I don't need it," he said with an eerie smile. "Vanessa does." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. "What? Is she here?" Cole's eyes lit up as if he were a child with a secret. "She is," he said, his voice rising with excitement. "Right here, in this room. She's almost here. Thanks to you, Cass. You've helped me bring her back." I stared at him, trying to make sense of what he was saying. "She's not real," I whispered, my voice breaking. "She's not real." Cole's eyes were wide with delirium. "She's been with me all along. My dream girl, my perfect girl, my Vanessa. She's coming back, and it's all because of you." My stomach churned as the horrifying truth sank in. Vanessa wasn't real. She was never real. She had been nothing but a figment of his sick imagination, a dream girl he couldn't let go of. "But why my nose?" I gasped, still struggling to understand. "What do you think you'll gain from this?" Cole's twisted grin faltered, and he shot me a venomous glare. I swallowed hard, unable to look away from his burning eyes. "Because you won't live to tell anyone about it," he spat, his voice cold and detached. I shook my head, desperate. "I'm not her. I'll never be her," I pleaded, my voice breaking. He laughed, that same maniacal chuckle echoing through the cold room. "You really think you're that important?" He scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. "Who says I need you? Whatever. I'm done wasting my time here." "Wait. Please wait," I begged, my words barely escaping my trembling lips as he moved toward the table. He grabbed the bone saw, the dull yellow light catching the blade, sending a chill down my spine. "Please. I don't want to die." My voice cracked as tears poured down my face. I thrashed against the restraints, panic surging through me. Cole kneeled in front of me, his cold hands grabbing my face, forcing it to stay still. "Stop moving," he hissed, his grip tightening, his fingers digging into my skin. I squeezed my eyes shut, heart racing, but I couldn't stop myself. I opened them again, meeting his gaze, desperate to hold his attention. "If you're going to kill me, then look at me while you do it," I demanded, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at me. He didn't answer, but I could see the shift in him, the agitation growing. I said, "Look me in the eye, you coward." My words rang out sharper than I meant. In a blur of motion, he struck me. His palm connected with my face, sending pain crashing through my cheek. I could feel the sting of it, my cheek burning as my head snapped to the side. "Why are you making this so goddamn hard?" Cole roared, spit flying from his mouth as he paced around, furious. "I'm not making it hard. You are." I shot back, defiant despite the fear. "You can't do it, can you? You can't look at me and do it. You've never been able to. You can't tell me those months didn't mean anything to you, that I wasn't more than just a part of your delusion. Admit it, admit it. Shut up, shut up," he screamed, his voice cracking as he slammed his fists against his own head, unraveling before me. I didn't know if I was breaking him or pushing him further toward something worse. His frustration was palpable, his rage unstoppable. He stormed up the stairs, his heavy footsteps shaking the old floorboards. I winced as the door slammed shut behind him, his wild movements stomping above me. I could hear him rambling, his words unclear, but I didn't have the luxury of trying to figure them out. I needed to escape, and fast. I began by pulling at the cuffs, but the force of my struggles wasn't enough. I needed something sharper, something I could use to break free. Then a thought hit me. My left wrist, if I could get to the tape, maybe I could rip it off. Every muscle screamed in protest, but I pushed through the pain. I leaned forward, gritting my teeth as I worked to get my mouth to the tape. Every second felt like a lifetime. My body begged me to stop, but I couldn't. I opened my mouth and worked my canine teeth under the edge of the tape, pulling, twisting. It took every ounce of strength, but I managed to tear a small gap. I glanced up quickly, praying he stayed upstairs. I kept my eyes fixed on the door, listening to him pacing above me. With my breath coming in short gasps, I worked at the tape, my teeth tearing it open more and more. The tape resisted, but finally, with one last determined tug, I felt it give way. A rush of relief surged through me as I pulled my wrist free. I wasted no time, quickly undoing the other cuff, then the tape around my ankles. When I tried to stand, my knees buckled beneath me. I almost collapsed, but I gritted my teeth and pushed myself to my feet. My legs felt like jelly, unsteady, but I had to move. I had to be quiet, careful. I checked the table, but there were no other tools. My pulse raced, and I tiptoed, making as little noise as possible, praying that he wouldn't come back down. Fuck! I was free, but still vulnerable. I couldn't just rush at him with a bone saw in his hand. I thought about pretending I was still trapped. Maybe I could catch him by surprise, but it was too risky. Time was ticking, and I needed to think fast. I glanced over at the staircase. It was wooden, with gaps between the steps. Suddenly, an idea sparked. I scrambled under the stairs, crouching in the shadows. I barely had time to catch my breath when the door creaked open above me. I raised my hands, heart pounding, trying to steady my breath. "You almost got me, Cass." That's when I knew he realized I was gone. I waited until I heard him running down the steps, coming right into my trap. As soon as his leg came within reach, I grabbed his ankle, yanking it hard. He tripped and crashed jaw first onto the stairs with a sickening crack. I was quick. I sprinted out from my hiding place, and, before he could get back up, I dropped my foot onto his head. Blood splattered across the concrete floor, and I heard the wood beneath him snap in half. I didn't wait a second longer. I bolted up the stairs, nearly tripping over my own feet in the process. I slammed the door open, locking it behind me with shaking hands. My wide eyes scanned the room. It looked like an abandoned house, nothing but empty walls and dust. I didn't have much time to think. I needed to get out. As I ran through the house, I stumbled into what looked like a former kitchen. But what I saw next made my stomach turn. There, lying across a rotting dinner table, was a grotesque sight. It was Vanessa, or what would have been her. Severed arms, legs, hands, and a head were crudely sewn onto a gray, decaying torso. Her face, her lips, hair, eyes, ears were all stapled and stitched on. But the most chilling thing was the nose. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. That's when it hit me. I was the missing piece in his sick puzzle. I was the final part of his twisted creation. Suddenly, I heard his voice, loud and desperate, banging on the basement door. "Cass, please. I need her. I need her." His words were garbled, full of blood and broken teeth. I couldn't stay here. I had to get out fast. I kept running, making my way through the house until I found an exit with no door. I burst out into the woods, not knowing how far I was from anywhere. I didn't stop. I couldn't. I ran through the dense trees, stumbling over rocks and branches, my skin shredded from the rough terrain. My lungs were on fire, but I didn't slow down. Eventually, I found myself stumbling onto a road, my body barely holding together. I collapsed onto the pavement, gasping for breath. My body ached, and I could feel my eyelids growing heavy. But then I saw headlights in the distance. "Help me, please," I whispered, though in my mind, my screams were deafening. The car screeched to a stop, and a man quickly got out, rushing over to me. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice full of concern. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. He quickly lifted me up, gently placing me across the back seat of the car. As I lay there, everything went black. I woke up in a hospital, disoriented but alive. The memories came rushing back, and I couldn't help but smile weakly. I'd made it. I was free. The doctors told me I wasn't seriously injured, just malnourished and exhausted. Within a day, I was released. I didn't waste any time. The first thing I did was go to the police. I told them everything about Cole, the obsession with my nose, the diary, Vanessa, the basement, and the body. The search was quick. They found everything. He'd managed to escape into the woods, but didn't get far. They tracked him to a rundown motel, where they arrested him. Afterward, he spilled everything. Turns out he'd been linked to over a dozen murders, girls who disappeared, dismembered, and had their facial features removed. All for his delusional quest to create the woman he saw in his twisted dreams. His diary revealed plans to use black magic to bring Vanessa to life. The police later discovered that the only common link between the victims was that they'd all spoken to him on dating apps under different aliases. Testifying in court was indescribable. Cole couldn't even look me in the eye, but I couldn't either. It was hard to accept the truth, to realize the person I thought I knew could be capable of such horrors. When I finally had a moment to breathe, when the police stopped asking questions and the court had finished its proceedings, I invited Jess over to my place. "Jesus Christ, Cass," she said, her voice filled with disbelief. "That's fucking insane. I'm so sorry. At least it's a story to tell." I chuckled weakly, though it hardly felt like something to laugh about. She pulled me into a hug, and I rested my head on her shoulder. "So," she asked, trying to lighten the mood, "any big epiphanies after all this?" I thought for a moment, then grinned. "I think I'm going to get a nose job.